This can be a pretty easy hour. Conservative pundits and influencers, and even Andy McCarthy from over at National Review and a Fox News contributor, he's a former federal prosecutor, they're predicting that Donald Trump is going to get sentenced to jail next month. Some are taking Andy McCarthy's column where he believes that Judge Merchan in New York is going to sentence Trump to prison on September the 18th, and they're running with it, and they believe that Trump is going to get a year behind bars. So, again, easy question for you as we kick off a Thursday here in the Relief Factor studios. Welcome in, by the way. Buckle up. We're going to have maybe a bumpy road ahead. Everything's bumpy right now. The mainstream media is totally in the tank for Harris and Tim Walz. We knew that was going to happen. I don't think we realized the extent to which it was going to happen. They're not even pretending to be shocked at the turn of events in the Democrat Party. They have no platform, no plan, no strategy other than to stop Trump and count on the fawning media to help stop him. So we get all of that. We're all of us, I'm sure, have a level of anxiety and stress. We got to keep praying. We got to be faithful. We've got to be active. We've got to be engaged. We've got to have our eyes wide open. We can win this thing. It's not a foregone conclusion that this bizarre coup against Joe Biden will prove successful. But to Andy McCarthy's column, and here's a caveat, McCarthy does say in the column it's unlikely that Trump will go to prison. Only that Judge Merchan is going to sentence him. Remember, Trump is facing, 34 felony convictions? What do people get for 34 felony convictions? A year or two? 5? 6 months? If Trump spends one day behind bars, what happens to America? I'm going to ask you a pretty simple question, and I'm going to turn it over to you quickly at 800-655-MIKE. 800-655-6453. Simple question, direct question. I want you to think about it and give me a call. What would happen if we wake up and hear or see and cover on this show and realize that Donald Trump is going to be processed at Rikers Island, fingerprinted, booked, mugshot, strip searched, and put behind bars? What's going to happen? And I mean that as directly as I can. I want to have a good, because, I've got a lot of theories about what I think is going to happen. One of them is that he wins in a landslide. 40 states, 45 states. That's the theory of my friend Mark Davis in Dallas. But the anguish of what our country will be put through if, pardon my language, if these bastards pull that off, I don't even like to think about how America is going to respond. So let's dive in. What do you think happens? Trump's sentencing is scheduled for September 18th. Andy McCarthy, smart guy, believes that Merchan is going to sentence Trump to prison. What happens to America if that occurs? Blue states will say he's been convicted of high crimes and misdemeanors and remove him from the ballot, saying he's ineligible. Well, I'm not sure I agree with that. The prison sentence is not anything different from the conviction. We haven't heard that yet. Oregon, we will fight, fight, fight. Maryland, a revolution will occur. Hawaii, I'm afraid of civil war. What happens to America when September 18th arrives and Judge Merchan sentences Trump to prison? Let's start with Tracy in Missouri, 21 minutes past the hour. Hi, Tracy. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm great, sir. How you doing today?
I'm pretty good, but I'm anxious and I'm a little worried here. What's going to happen? What happens to America if Trump winds up behind bars?
Listen, if Trump winds up behind bars, he wins the election. You're going to have every disenfranchised black young man who's been wrongly arrested and wrongly put in jail. You're going to have their families going, what the heck? He's one of us. just like when he was convicted. What happened? His numbers went up. I mean, I'm telling you, this is not such a bad thing if he ends up in prison.
Yeah, but
he wins.
But on a personal level, can I ask you this? And I tend to agree with you, Tracy. I think you make all the sense in the world. He's already outperforming any Republican in the history of America with black voters, with union voters, with Hispanic voters. No Republican has ever garnered this kind of support. And I think you're totally right. A lot of it has to do with what they've done to him. But let me ask you on a purely personal note, on a purely personal level, doesn't your heart absolutely just break at the idea of him going through the humiliation of going to jail on a personal level?
It would be horrifying. It would be, but see, I think the entire nation would feel that. And then you've made him the underdog.
I got you. Great call, Tracy. Call anytime. Thanks. One open line, 800-655-MIKE. Bob in Georgia. Bob, what do you think is going to happen to America if they lock Trump up next month?
Well, I'm sure the civil unrest will be out of control, Mike. But I think that we could do this incrementally and maybe protect the republic. We could start by surrounding the courthouse with 70, 80,000 people on the 18th. And if that does not send the message, then how about a general strike where the entire population says, that's it, we're not going to do anything?
You know, I worry about civil unrest, and I think we all do. I'm concerned about violence. That won't lead to anything positive. Nothing good will come out of that. Just ask people who are rotting in jail over January 6th. It doesn't work. It will not work. I know people get frustrated with me when I say that, and we absolutely must denounce and deplore any kind of violence in the streets. So that worries me. The ultimate solution is that he wins in a landslide, even if he's behind bars. And we will grieve and we will hurt for him and his family. We'll grieve for our country, but we'll put him in office, and there's not a damn thing they can do about it. That, to me, you want to talk about, people are saying, here's Joshua in Bradenton, Florida. Joshua, I see on the screen that you say it'll be a dark day if he goes to jail. It's a dark day now. The fact that he's facing a prison sentence on September 18th is pretty dark as it is, don't you think?
I totally agree with you, Mike. And yeah, like you said, on a personal level, people forget he's a father, he's a husband,
grandfather,
the grandfather, if I'm not mistaken.
He is,
and they forget he's a human being. And yeah, it would be an awful, awful day for America if he gets sent to jail. But like the first caller said, I believe it'll bump him up even more.
I love what Tracy said. I agree with you, Brian. Tracy's call was a good way to start the theme of this whole show. Brian's in Tampa. Hey, Brian, welcome. How are you?
Oh, great. How are you doing?
I'm great. What do you think happens to America if Trump gets sentenced to prison?
Well, I do believe he'll be victorious in the election. And I just don't see him going to prison because I think they use evidence that Supreme Court said wasn't allowed.
Nope, not yet. They haven't. This will wind up before the Supreme Court, but no, the Supreme Court has not weighed in on the merits of this ridiculous conviction. They've weighed in on immunity, but not on this bogus case that Alvin Bragg came up with, the prosecutor who promised and campaigned on the platform of stopping Trump and sending him to prison. And if they get what they want, look, all I can think of, all I keep considering is the old analogy about the dog chasing the car. If the dog catches the car, then what's he going to do with it? And I don't think the Democrats want to catch this car. I mentioned Trump's support with black voters, with Hispanic voters, with independents, of course. You saw the Fox News poll yesterday, probably, where he wins right now over Kamala, big time with independents. Here was Luntz, Frank Luntz, the pollster, who is trashing Trump generally right now over the campaign. But he did point something out on CNN yesterday, how well Trump is performing with union members, better than any Republican in the history of the country.
But I assure you that Donald Trump is doing better among the average union member not teachers' unions and not the unions for government, but everybody else, the trades, the people who work with their hands. He's doing better among them than any Republican has done in decades. This is not going to be a problem for him. The union leadership is more divided from their membership, and the louder that it gets, the greater the divides are going to come. And in my focus groups, and this is remarkable to me, the union membership says they don't speak for me. And I've been doing this now since I hate to say this, 89, 1990. I've never had union people publicly say they don't speak for me.
I like what he said about how popular Trump is with people who work with their hands. It's pretty telling, isn't it? You know, interestingly, there's a caller on hold, Wade, who says absolutely nothing will happen if and when Trump is sentenced to prison. I find that pretty remarkable. I want to talk to Wade here in just a moment because that's not even an option. Something's going to happen. There's, in my mind, there's no way it's just like, oh, well, not a big deal. So be it. Trump gets sentenced to prison. Just another day. I find that real unlikely. Meanwhile, we're starting to learn a little bit of Kamala Harris's real ideology. Now, she's playing a game here, all of a sudden pretending to be tough on the border. Suddenly, she's going to be in favor of fracking. Everybody knows what she's doing politically. She's just trying to opportunistically fool people into thinking she's something that she's not. But when it comes to core economic principles, she can't help herself. And it's already been revealed and leaked that tomorrow she's going to reveal government-mandated price controls as a part of her economic strategy. She wants to turn America into Venezuela. That's what happened in Venezuela. And when there were government-mandated price controls in Venezuela, look at the track record. Inflation, economic collapse, black market, smuggling, social unrest. I mean, the aftermath of what happened in Venezuela it should be a case study on how leftist economic policies can backfire. And so I guess it's fair to say, be ready, keep an eye on this tomorrow. If Kamala Harris gets her wish, the United States will turn into Venezuela. You ready to vote for her? Here's Wade in St. Petersburg, Florida. How you doing, Wade?
Great. How are you?
I'm great. So you don't think anything will happen in the country if Trump winds up behind bars?
I think the message was sent on January 6th to Trump voters, Trump supporters, good law-abiding citizens. If you protest, if you show up peacefully protest, you'll be hunted down and charged with a crime. I want to preface my initial thought. There will be Antifa rioters and protesters protesting, and causing havoc, and Trump voters will be blamed for that.
Mm-hmm.
But us Trump voters are law-abiding citizens, and the deep state, the government workers.
Yep.
Even a government union is going to take the side of the government, and they're not going to take the side of the Trump voter. Unfortunately, their pensions are on their line, their careers are on the line, their way of living is on the line. So they're not going to step up and do the right thing. They're going to stick with their government job.
In other words, your characterization of doing the right thing, of course, is to peacefully protest, and you use that phrase, and that's important. I also feel an obligation to point out that there were people on January 6th who were not peacefully protesting. Would you agree?
I would agree, but I would also say that could have been muddy waters, and most likely were Antifa.
No, I mean, that's factually not true. I mean, we've seen a lot of people sentenced to jail who admitted to engaging in violent behavior and destructive, behavior, and they were Trump supporters on the record. They're proud Trump supporters who now are going to spend a long time in jail because they assaulted cops or they broke windows or they broke down doors.
Can I interject one thought real quick?
Sure.
Okay. There may be some validity what you're saying, but I want to use the Tea Party movement, the Tea Party events that were protests that were peaceful. Overwhelmingly, they were polite. The reports were they pick up their trash.
Sure.
Polite,
I went to a lot of Tea Party rallies. That's true. That's completely correct.
Yeah, I don't think if there were some troublemakers in January 6th, I don't think that was representative of the Tea Party, conservative, law-abiding.
No. Nobody's saying that. Yeah. But what I'm always intrigued by is, and I don't want to challenge you, I think you and I are largely on the same page, but I'm always fascinated by the willingness that people have to avoid or ignore the very violent actions of at least hundreds of people. Now, it wasn't thousands, it wasn't millions. They're not representative of a typical Trump supporter. There's no question. They got carried away. They overdid it. They went overboard. But Wade, you can't ignore those people. We've all seen the video. We've all seen what they did. We've all seen some of their cases. Some of them, and I would agree that a lot of them got a disproportionate prison sentence. It's out of control. They were made examples out of. It's wrong. It's awful. I agree with all that. But you can't turn a blind eye to the violent activities of at least some of those people on January 6th.
Again, us being human beings in God's creation, we see good and we see bad. My point to you, Mike, would be this, and I think majority of Americans feel the same way I do. Antifa, woke, Black Lives Matter, rioters can cause 10 times the amount of havoc and be out of jail within 2 hours.
Okay, and again, you're old. It's ridiculous. They can burn buildings to the ground. They can assault cops. They can get away. Don't. You're not going to get an argument from me at all. Like I said, I totally agree with you. I'm just always intrigued. There's never a distinction made from our side about the good people who were peacefully protesting on January 6th, or who just went to see Trump speak and had no involvement in the violence and the destructive behavior. It fascinates me that we look the other way and act like that didn't happen, and it did happen. And look, I'm never going to disagree with you that plenty of these January 6th protesters have been treated horribly, and it's egregious to witness a country. Look at Minnesota. Look at what Tim Walz allowed in his own state. Look at the way police had to give up a precinct, and look at the way they were overrun and assaulted and violence, and there's a heck of a lot more destruction after George Floyd died than happened in the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. They've weaponized January 6th to a way that is one of the most disgusting rhetorical absurdities I've ever seen. How many times did I play the clip of Trump over and over again on this show on January 6th saying, I know that you're going to peacefully, well, play the clip. This is a clip that never gets enough airtime because they cut it out all the time. Here's the clip. Eric, go ahead and hit that clip. I don't see it on my screen. Here's Trump on January 6th. This is those few seconds of his speech that they always edit out. They never include what Trump actually said that day.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
And of course, that doesn't even include the social media message that he did from the Rose Garden, go home, we have to be peaceful, you shouldn't be attacking. They never give him any credit for that because they lie. And that's what leads people like Wade to say what and feel the way Wade felt. I get it completely. I completely believe it. I just know that we should not excuse the people who did commit violent acts on January 6th. They did a lot of harm to our side. They gave the Democrats a giant, big, fat gift with a giant red bow around it. And they've hammered MAGA over it ever since. Dan's in Columbus, Ohio, 17 minutes before the hour. Hey, Dan, thanks for holding. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine.
What do you think happens to America if the day comes where Trump winds up behind bars?
Well, I think it's going to be calm.
I hope you're right.
I think it's going to be calm. I think it's going to be calm because people in 49 other states are going to be peacefully boycotting New York City and New York State.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if it worked for Bud Light, it can. I know there are nice people in the state of New York and New York City. I don't need to visit them. I don't need to buy the products that are advertised on NBC, CBS, and ABC.
Absolutely.
Watch their TV shows.
Gotcha. All right, Dan, appreciate it very much. 16 before the hour, more coming up.